the water's fine, homie, jump into the deep end. Sow it, you will reap it. We talking how to start it, how to grow it, how to keep it. Take a deep breath. You are now rocking with Founder Secret.
Welcome back by popular demand. Sam has joined us on the pod again. Welcome.
Happy to be here.
All right. So we got a packed kind of episode today. Sam just got back from a big conference, Abundance360. We're going to talk about what's coming in the future, some fun things there. We're going to talk about how the new ways of spying and YouTube channels that summarize movies. And Sam has a new phone trick that is the talk of the town, and everybody's talking about it. All right, so let's jump in. What is Abundance360?
Yeah, Abundance360, it's a conference run by this guy, Peter Diamandis. Amazing conference about future technology. So he brings together the best people in the world who will talk about organ printing technology and longevity and how that's evolving, and robotics and quantum computing and AI and brain-computer interface and these kind of leading-edge frontier technologies, which are super cool and happening super quickly, especially we feel that now with how fast AI is developing, like even in the past 6 months. And so this conference is where all that happens. So it's broken up into several days. Like one of the things that they talked about was, so in the space of longevity, moving super quickly, I think that the 2030s is going to be the era of longevity. Just like you couldn't throw a rock without hitting a crypto bro like 2 years ago. In the 2030s, that's going to be the
still
case.
the same.
So that's going to be the same thing with longevity, except we will hit longevity escape velocity. What do I mean by that? So I think we're at the precipice of radical life extension. So right now, every year that goes by, humans gain an extra 3 months of lifespan. So every 4 years, you gain 1 year. And that's accelerating. It's getting faster and faster. Eventually, you'll gain 1 year for every year that goes by, and eventually gain more than a year for every year that goes by. When that happens, magical things happen, because then if you just happen to stay alive long enough, you can benefit from all that. So I had one guy there, David Sinclair, who's expert in the field with aging, and he talked about like the latest progress they've made with that. So they have mice in the lab. They had vision that they lost. They became unable to see, and they injected them with this special serum, and their vision came back, so they were able to see again. Likewise, those mice gained Alzheimer's, became old and not able to think as properly, and then they were able to reverse that and bring that back. And so this is on the verge of being a reality, I think. And so what was most interesting, though, of all of that's new is that he said that he would feel comfortable injecting himself in 2 years. So like what he's working on, I think that the ultimate testament to like a scientist working on a craft is when they feel comfortable like experimenting on themselves. And so he's like on the verge of doing that. So that was super cool.
What is this serum?
Yeah, that's a good question.
He didn't talk about the magic sauce.
Right. I mean, he didn't explain the magic sauce, but maybe he said what it was, but it was like...
I'm taking rapamycin, which is one of the longevity drugs, David Sinclair and Peter Attia, and I follow the space very closely. In fact, I suggested to Taylor as an idea to do for the pod is to sort of do a longevity like con or something, thinking it's going to pick up. And Taylor shot me down. Taylor said it was a bad idea. I mean, it is sort of a niche, because when you said, hey, everybody's living 3 months longer, that might be true for some people, but I hear half the country has diabetes, right, and we're living worse, shorter. So do you think this is a niche audience that's only like a few people, or is this going to be?
I think it starts that way. Computers were a niche audience. AI was a niche audience. Everything's a niche audience until it isn't. And it's all about like how quickly it accelerates out of that. So I think likewise, it'll be this way here too. I think the crowd that's working on this is very mindful of the democratization of these technologies so that it's accessible to everybody. Yeah. But to your point, so actually you mentioned that there are certain things people can wear. For example, the thing that you wear on your shoulder, which is the like glucose monitor. And so Apple's about to release their version that does that with without piercing the skin. That's a huge deal. And so I think that actually will extend to what eventually happens with the brain-computer interface. This is another big thing in this changed the way I thought about like brain-computer interface technology. So Neuralink is working on this and it sounds really cool, but drilling into the skull, like installing something so invasive, people really want to do that. And I don't think that's how it's going to happen. What's going to end up happening is not that. Even though that's cool, and for someone who's a paraplegic, being able to type like 16 words per minute or eventually 80 words per minute through that, great. But it will make its way to being non-invasive. So tier 2 sample applications. One is that someone spoke at the conference and talked about how there's enough bandwidth in like the nervous system, like even going through the finger, connecting to the mind, that you could go through this pathway and communicate with the brain. So it doesn't require this direct connectivity. That was super cool, super interesting. And then secondarily, they had a demo of like doing an MRI of the brain and someone like looking at a picture of a cat, a picture of a bull, and the computer then like figured out what they were looking at. It recreated the image of what they saw. It wasn't literally exact. It was like approximate. It was because if you feed it through like an AI computer and you describe something, and that's what it looked like. But that was through an MRI. That was not invasive. And so like this concept of eventual thought, I think that's how we get there. Like the connectivity by way of remote connection or by way of non-surgical connectivity to the brain.
And what's the advantage, like to a normal person? What do you think the advantage is? Tech people and like entrepreneurs and all that. But I mean, do you think there'd be advantages to if you're a factory worker in Ohio? What's the advantage to a normal person who maybe has diabetes right now or whatnot?
Yeah. For one, I can send you a text message right now and you could read it right now while we're sitting here without taking out our hands and doing that. And in a way, I think that many humans have already merged with machines in a way that's not intuitive, right? Like how many people in this building right now don't have their cell phone with them, or like how many people in this building could go a day without using their phone? I mean, it's not super common. People really rely on their phones, like super ubiquitous. And so this is just this continuous merger that happens as we rely on it more and more. It's just a slight difference in form factor then. Like the power and capability, like typing with our fingers is so slow. It's such a slow way of communicating. And if we could talk with our phone without using our fingers, that's a big deal. That's like 100x rate of increase in speed. So then, okay, back to the factory worker. I mean, he could maybe control robots that do the work, the dangerous work going into a hot furnace. And he does that with his thought, right? Because that's the interfaces as opposed to controls. That could be an eventual application for like brain-computer interface for factory workers.
That's cool. One of our friends went to an OpenAI event last week, and they were showing, I guess the brand new ChatGPT can read images. And so it showed this image. An image was input that had on one side, it was a scale. And then on one side was like an anvil with a rope, like a rope holding something really heavy. And then on the other side was like a bell. So a human knows if you cut the rope, ding, boom, right? But that's outrageously hard for a computer to figure that out. And all it did was it fed the image, the drawing, and then it said, what happens if you cut the rope? And then it gave a whole description of what happened, and then it said it rings the bell. And Jeff was telling us all this, and he goes, the AI person that was the person that works at OpenAI was showing this on the screen and said that answer was wrong last week. Isn't that crazy? Like that's it's learning. Wow. And
yeah.
Anyway, Abundance360. Any other kind of?
They had guys in jetpacks there flying around. So that was pretty cool.
For real?
Yeah, like it's like a demo at launch. Everyone's like, "Hey, come outside! There's like something buzzing," and it just sounds like a super loud drone. It was very loud, and like some guys like flying around on a jetpack and like doing moves, and it was super cool. So that happened. Also, they talked about quantum. Okay, so I think the most interesting use of quantum computing, which is otherwise like a little bit pie in the sky stuff, is like store now, decrypt later. The notion this is happening right now. Like the foreign governments are intercepting internet traffic, and they know they can't decrypt it, and they just save it because in the future they will be able to decrypt it using quantum computers 10 years from now. So like all the passwords which are through like RSA, like that's gonna be broken. But that's not the big deal. What's interesting isn't that, it's the trade secrets, like Pfizer sending how to build something with their vaccine in their internal computers. That's all encrypted. If it's encrypted with something which is not with like RSA, which is like normal internet traffic, then it can be broken eventually, and it will be, and they're saving it for that time.
Or like sending instruction to a drone to bomb someplace.
Yeah, that's true. But so there's going to be this eventual upgrade. There will be an upgrade of encryption to being something which quantum computers can't break. And that's a possible thing. That there are new methods to do that. They get by that. So 10 years from now, we might have all our encryption be that way. Gotcha. But there are some things that have happened today. And it's like we will be paying the Pied Piper for that 10 years from now. Like you'll change your passwords, and that's not the big deal. But if you sent something today, which is like very sensitive information, and you thought it was private and is relevant 10 years from now, and it was sent and that was intercepted, that will be decrypted.
Yeah, what if you were a business person today and you send something to a friend and then you're a politician 10 years from now?
Yes, like that. That is an example of that because that stays forever as long as that traffic was intercepted. So the government's aware of this. There's like new rules coming out that there's a new encryption mechanism that needs to be used for government agencies. They're trying to rapidly catch up on this.
Whoa. So that gets closer to what's happening today, because I'm curious with all this, the longevity, the quantum computer, and the brain interface, like how are you changing what you're doing today, how you're approaching your life today differently after learning all these things from the conference.
Yeah. I mean, I feel this burning urgency to be an AI first organization. And so Chris and I, my business partner, and I are constantly talking about, okay, how can we reorient what we're doing to be AI first? Because if we don't, others will, right? And it's simultaneously exciting, and this is such a huge opportunity, and it's this massive risk of it's going to be done either way. And so we have to get in front of it. So we're looking at everything we do right now through that lens of, okay, how do we accomplish that? So some tangible things are having a chief AI officer, just like there's maybe a chief revenue officer, a chief information officer, having a chief AI officer who looks at that. And if the company doesn't have one, then are we up to date really? Is that just the CTO's role right now, or should that be its own distinct function? So we're exploring that. Workflow processes, how can we get everyone to be excited about AI? So it might be, I as a hobbyist might think that AI is super cool, but that's useless to the organization if not everyone thinks, lives, and breathes that, right? And so how can we all share the best practices and tips internally? We have a teach-in on Tuesday where a bunch of non-technical people are going to be seeing best practices, AI delivered from Chris, the CTO, which is great, just so we can all start rowing in that direction and be thinking about how to implement that.
Was the tone at the conference really positive? Were people really excited about the future?
Immensely positive. The tone was we are at the precipice of this enormous opportunity. Yeah.
I just feel like we've been on this precipice. I remember a few years ago I went to a conference that also got me similarly jazzed about longevity. And here we are, a few years later.
But we've made progress. Yeah, and we're way further along. 6 months ago, ChatGPT 3.5 was super cool, and now that's nothing compared to 4, right? The bar exam was passed 10th percentile. Now it's passed the 90th percentile, ChatGPT 4, and then pretty soon everything's gonna be 90th percentile on every exam. That's gonna be in 2 years, right? And so that's huge progress. They called for a ban. I mean, I'm not super following the news, but there's people coming out asking for
Elon did.
Yeah, so it's not clear if he is if that was actually him or if it was not him, but because Sam Altman allegedly signed it, but it wasn't really him that signed it. It was a faker who did it.
So I'm going to predict that this actually, I'm going to take the opposite side of this bet, if you will. That we're all going to be connected to AI and the human brain interface, and that we'll be merged with it as one. So I'll take the opposite, which for me, that would be that you're right, everything will be so AI generated and looks so real, whether it's Elon saying something or Trump saying something, that as humans, I think we're not going to be able to tell just doing what's real and what's not, except for in real life interactions. So I would suggest that what's going to happen is people would actually move away from technology, let technology do its thing, automate things, do the work, generate the economy, but the actual meaning will actually move away from technology and more towards human-to-human interactions, because the only thing you can trust is your experience. You can no longer trust it if you see something on your phone or computer. Is that real or not? It's all just a movie. So basically it's turning technology into just entertainment, which is great. That's always going to be there. But for actual meaningful interactions, I would think people will start moving away from it.
I think those people get left behind.
And maybe they want to get left behind.
Look, the music industry is about to change. Just like it changed from CDs to Spotify, and everything changed. I think that's about to happen again. There was that tweet with someone making a Kanye song, right? And he's
super good.
He spit it, and then he ran it through the AI filter, and it sounded just like Kanye, and it was amazing. And what that means is that user interface is going to get cleaned up, and 2-3 years from now, anyone's going to be able to make music. And even if you don't have a great voice, you'll be able to do it. So then things that used to matter less might matter tremendously, right? The quality of your singing might not matter as much as your audience or your brand or your message or your purity or something else. And that could totally change how music happens, right? Famous artists could maintain being famous, but the next person might be tremendous not because of his voice.
Or be a fake person altogether. You'd have. So I saw a demo of I could create a 3D model of Flaviu, right? So I had to bring you in, take all these pictures and videos and everything, and then you go away. And then I hire a cheap person who's an actor to do everything, and then the AI will model you onto that person's body. And so now you don't need actors or actresses anymore. I just need, and soon you don't even need the Flaviu, right? But so you have a human do the actual acting and do all the work, but then you can put any face on it, or you could put any kind of, and that's amazing. And the actors are like, oh no, my job's going to go away. Maybe. But also, doesn't it open up all these possibilities? Like the poor person or the people who don't have access to actors can now create amazing movies. So you could have a 1-person or 2-person studios creating amazing creative works. It's like it opens up a lot of
opens
opportunities.
up creativity, totally. Because this terrible infrastructure requirement of production of creativity goes away, right? So much has been built today because like you could start an internet company and like you have AWS, you have all these services that make life easier, in 20 years ago that didn't exist. And now you want to make a podcast, you got to have a studio, there's all this stuff you need. Or to your point, make a movie, you need the actors and now you don't need that necessarily. Someone with pure creativity could come in and use all that as a service and be able to develop.
Was you saying that you thought that Billboard would have a separate chart for AI music or AI artists?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, like, if we can tell, at some point we might not be able to tell. I think that like the nativeness with which we can tell what's AI or not varies by cohort. Here's what I mean. So presently, like old people today get tricked by scam emails that might be like obviously scam emails, right? It's like a phishing email and it's like there's a typo from Bank of America and like they would never send you that, but they're like, oh yeah, let me just give you my password, right? Someone who's maybe a millennial just like never gets tricked by that. They know that it's fine. Okay, likewise, like millennials are gonna get tricked by AI. They're gonna be like not know what's a deep fake, what's not. And like the kids are gonna know. They're gonna be like, come on, dad, like of course that's not the real Kanye because he went like this with his shoulder and you should know that, right? And so that's gonna be a thing and we're gonna miss it. We're not gonna be able to tell.
It's going to be us.
It's gonna be us. We're resending passwords. Like, here's my social security number. Yes, Kanye reached out to me. Like,
it said, "Hey Sam."
Right. Yeah, right.
Oh, jeez. What's the phone trick?
So I'm at this conference, right? And like you meet people, and then eventually it's, oh, okay, yeah, would love to connect. And so you either have to find a business card. Sucks. A lot of people don't have it. Or there's like an app, and the app is super clunky. Or you want to like text someone, like, oh, I'll text you, and then you have to type it in. So I thought about it. I was like, wait a second, like, why don't I just have a QR code in my phone now? And if I go into conference mode, which is this, like I change the front of my phone to have my QR code, and it says, this will text Sam. So if you're like, hey, I want to connect with you, Sam. I'm like, that's cool. Here you go. And I pull out my phone, and you could just look at this QR code, and not only is it going to type in my phone number, it also says...
Yeah, let me try.
Yeah, try it.
All right, let's do it.
Oh.
And so can you read what it says?
Hi, Sam Lundin. It was great meeting you at place in brackets and talking about subject in brackets.
You gave him a template.
So I write the template. I wrote everything out and the 3 things to fill out. You know why? Because if someone like, sometimes you give someone your number and they text you and they just write like, Bob. And you're like, okay. And then 6 months later, Bob texts you and it's like, you can see the text and the change. It says Bob. You're like, who is Bob? Like, where did I meet him? What do we talk about? Like, it's just, you have no ability to know. So that's why instead, if there's like my full name, it says, hey, Sam Lundin. So they know my last name too, because maybe they just met me as Sam. And then here's where we met, and here's what we talked about. And then they don't have to fill that in. If they do, then like 6 months later, if I message them back, they're like, oh, yeah, that's what that was. And they know it. And so then it's pre-filled and it just works. You can also just hit send with your name on it, and that works too, but it makes it way faster.
And did people use it?
So I came back and I was like, okay, I need to build this. So I did it. I was at this party last night and I used it, and that was my first use case, and it was great. It was great.
And people use it.
People used it. I mean, it's not like I was walking around giving it to everyone, but like when it came to the point with someone's like, hey, would love to be in touch, there's that.
That's a good idea, and you made it the cover of your phone. That's smart.
So it's so easy, because otherwise I'd be like, hey, hold on a second, let me find the photo in my album. It would take too long, right? I can't do that.
Wait, you made it the lock? Is that what it was?
It's my like home screen. Yeah, it's the lock screen. So, and I still have my old one, right? Because you could like tap on this, and then you could like switch between your lock screens really quickly. So I have like conference mode lock screen.
You just like swipe to it.
You just swipe to it. You turn it on, like you walked into the conference and like you do it. Or at the party, you can even forgot you don't have it on. You just swipe to it. Like you push and hold on the screen, and then like you move left or right, and it switches your thing, and then you have it.
It was a great trick.
And that's it. It's easy.
Oh, Flaviu, you have a trick?
Oh, I don't. I thought only Sam was showing phone tricks. Do you have a trick?
A tip.
Oh, okay.
Let's do it.
That's different.
So, yeah. We have tricks into tips. I used to have a personal trainer in Kentucky, and I loved it. And what I loved about it was the accountability, and I loved that somebody it felt like I was on a program when I was working out. But I think part of my issue with working out is A, the accountability, and B, feeling like I'm doing something, I'm doing like the right stuff, or that I'm not wasting my time, right? That I'm getting the most use if I invest this hour, then I get the most out of that hour. Also, I like being able to ask somebody, hey, should I do this? And the last thing I wanted was, It was helpful when I'm traveling because I have different equipment, or I can like say I'm staying at this hotel and then they'll tell me what I can do in the hotel room or in the hotel gym. Okay, so there's a service called Future. I have no affiliation with them.
Like
but
the
there's
rapper?
this
Future?
Yeah, it's owned by the rapper. No, it's called Future Fitness, and they raise a bunch of money. But they integrate. It's like digital. It's like a personal trainer built into a like digital first kind of methodology, right? It requires an Apple Watch. So you had to have an Apple Watch because it uses that for the workouts. And then there is a real human on the other side. Now, I think he's a real human. It could be AI, but I met him. We do FaceTime. There's like chatting through the app, but it's really slick because every Sunday he like drops new workouts for me. And then I do the workouts in the app and it like shows you videos of every single thing. It's $149 a month. And you get like unlimited workouts, right? And so every week I tell him, hey, like I'm going to California next week. I told him, hey, I'm staying here. Here's the kind of equipment I have available. And then he's cool. What days do you want to work out? I'm going to work out Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and then he puts them all on the calendar. And then he messages me every day to say, hey, you said you were going to do this today. And then you give feedback afterwards. So afterwards I say, how hard was this workout? And then you give notes. So I say, hey, I think we're doing too many heurts hurts my knees. And then boom, he'll update it. He updates the next workout. And then it keeps track of your progress, which I really like. So I like the accountability of somebody just messaging me, an unaffiliated party. And I told him, I was like, be tough with me, right? Like I want to be held accountable. So if I say I'm going on Wednesday and I don't go, I want somebody to hold me accountable. So yeah, just cool idea.
That's cool.
That's cool. I do have a tip.
Okay.
Have you guys heard of Yousician?
No.
What's that?
So I bought a guitar a couple of weeks ago, and mostly because of the app. The app was so amazing, Yousician, and the way I've tried learning guitar before and eventually just gave up. But with this app, it's just extremely engaging and easy to follow, and they'll put songs through, and it's hard to sort of describe, but it's just a brilliantly done app for learning music. And I think they even do other instruments like a piano and ukulele.
So is it a video?
It's a video, but it's very progressive, right? So it walks you through like a short 15-second video, and then apply it. And you apply it, and they're like, oh, and it's able to listen to the microphone and tell me with each note, did I hit it, did I not, did I hit it, did I not? And it gives you little points, and it's just very engaging, a way of making sure you do it right, but also incremental, so it's doable. Each step along the way is doable. It's not you go from knowing nothing to, oh, okay, now play Leonard Skinner. But it does actually get you some famous songs eventually, too. Not like the full song, but part of it. It's very rewarding. I really became addicted to learning guitar again through this app. So yeah,
Just no M.
Yousician, like
musician.
Yousician. It's also a paid app, but if you do, I'd honestly just did the free trial because I was staying at an Airbnb. They happened to have a free guitar just laying around, and so I got this free trial on the app just for the time I was there, and then just became addicted to this guitar app.
Yeah.
So highly recommend it.
I think this is the power of computing. Like it displaces the guitar. But you know what? Like you weren't going to hire a private guitar person anyway, probably. Maybe you were. But it like creates new opportunities in the economy because like you weren't going to do that. And now you will because it's easier and there's an app that does it. And now you're a more skilled person.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have any other tips?
Speaking of Airbnb, I think that you should always ask for a discount anytime you're about to book an Airbnb. There's no downside. I just booked something at Airbnb, and right beforehand, I was like, oh, hey, could this be? I just asked for a slightly lower price, and they met me halfway. I was fully willing to pay like the regular price. And
You could just message the host saying, hey,
yeah,
I'm
let's
about
you
to
message the
book
host.
this.
I'm about to book. This is slightly more the budget-wise than we have in the budget. Can you accommodate this newer price?
It's a good tip in general. It really works also for your healthcare bills. So if you go to a dentist and dentist, hey, you want a crown? It's $2,000. Like that price is highly negotiable.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Like
So you
which
could-
healthcare prices?
All of them, but dentists in particular, because they don't take insurance a lot of times, so cash prices are more negotiable. But even a hospital bill at the end of the day is actually negotiable because if you don't pay it, they'll send it to collections, which they'll get 50 cents on the dollar. So they'll take at least half from somebody eventually. So, but with the dentist, I think you could do it on the spot. And I've done it on the spot. So, hopefully my dentist isn't watching. But yeah, look, this is too expensive. I can't afford it. Can we do it like this? And it's uncomfortable because you're bargaining with
The person
service
doing the work?
provider.
there. But you're not bargaining with the dentist. You're really bargaining with the front staff person who, her boss or his boss. Hey, don't give anybody discounts. But then if they really want to, like, it's okay.
Oh, it's funny. You don't negotiate with dentists themselves. You do it with the staff.
The dentist is out there in the back watching Netflix or occasionally checking in on somebody.
I love it. All right, what's this frequency?
Oh, yeah.
The
this is
phone.
So what
cool.
happens
So-
when you dial 911?
In today's phone communication world, so there is a certain electric signal in the back of phone calls. If you use a payphone and call somewhere, or if you're just on the phone in a certain area, and like the local power lines have very slight modulation in the frequency, but it's unique to that area because it's constantly modulating in a slightly different way. It's different everywhere around the country. Now, this is generally noise, except if you're trying to figure out where someone is. So if the police want to figure out where a certain call was made from, if they could pick up on the buzz, it's this electric buzz which exists on all calls, which is really imperceptible. You don't think about it. You have to like really zoom in on it. They can find that buzz and then compare it against the database of all the buzzes that exist everywhere all the time, and they could figure out where this call was made and when it was made. And there are YouTube videos proving this online right now because it sounds crazy and like it's made up space technology.
All phone calls?
Like cell phone? Like
So,
so, dial
yeah,
911 right now?
I don't know what the limits are of it. I think that it's not just cell phones. I think it's also with like Zoom calls possible. Anything where there's going to be some level of electricity running through it, because there's like very slight variances in the electricity, in the amount of electricity, and that makes a very slight signal in it. There's a video by Veritasium and others on YouTube that like explains it and talks about it. And this is being used to solve crimes right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Whoa. This is business I know did. Their whole model was to make 911 calls more intelligent so they get more information. So this might kill them.
The issue is it's not the 911 call that's the problem normally, because at that point, like the person, it's like they're not going to immediately diagnose on the spot. It's not like but it's for if it's like a hostage call or a ransom call or ransom they called from somewhere, or like the murderer they're chasing for drops some sort of clue or calls in somewhere or talks to someone, and he wouldn't say where he is, but they could listen to the phone call that he called his like daughter, and he said like, I can't say where I am, but blah, 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 blah. They can now figure out where that was from that signature. And so it's useful in like piecing that together for that type of situation.
So like in those movies when they're like, okay, you have to hold them on the line for
Right.
45. Now you're saying they can do it.
They don't have to hold them on for as long as they have a clear signal. I don't know what the minimum signal length is, but it's not like it's an immediate thing. It's not like we found him. Go after 20 seconds. It's 3 days later. They're like analyzing.
Oh, it takes a lot of work.
It's like it's something that takes a lot of work. Yeah, maybe over time they automate it, but yeah.
All right, what about you watch shorter versions of movies?
Totally business idea for YouTube. So YouTube has these YouTube recaps. It's like a 12-minute or 10-minute summary of a movie. So if there's like a movie in China, which you can't understand, but it's like a cool horror story and like very interesting otherwise, you just watch 10 minutes of it. It may not be worth 2 hours, but 10 minutes. And it's some guy who just like stitched together clips from the movie, and they throw a voice over the whole thing and explain it. And it's awesome. And this could be like an AI done item, right? Someone could use ChatGPT equivalent or something to summarize the movie and then write the scenes. And then, there are AIs that could be tools that could be used to then create this. And before long, you create a YouTube video. And then people will watch the whole thing, right? Because they want to get the whole movie summary, and might be a way to monetize it. I don't know how the copyright works, but
Because it's really clips from the actual movie.
Yeah. But not audio from the movie. But yeah, it's clips from the movie, and I think that might be like fair use because YouTube's aware of this. They're very good at detecting unauthorized items, and this passes. So
Apparently, YouTube is like one of the best detection mechanisms in the world. I was talking to somebody that builds this fingerprinting technology they license. I guess the music companies license bring these guys in to find, and he was explaining. I listened to Shazam. I watched like a 30-minute documentary about how Shazam works, and it's much harder than it sounds. And because you would think, I guess in my head, I thought it's actually not that hard. You just like take the song and then just compare it to a big data set. It probably requires a lot of computing, but I could intellectually, I guess in my head, figure it out.
How does it work?
It doesn't work like that. So that's what made Shazam so valuable. Is that because there's huge background noise, so you have to be able to identify where is the song, because it's never in a quiet room, rarely. Like it's usually at like a restaurant or somewhere, and there's people talking, and how do you differentiate between the talking that is you and the talking that's in that song? And this is really hard, so they have to remove all of that, and what they actually look for, or they look for the highs and lows. So that was the net of all this, is what you look for is the pattern is how high is the pattern of high, low, low, low. Okay, what songs match that pattern? Oh, there's 9 of them. Let's keep listening. High, high. Oh, whittled it down to 4. And it was just really fascinating how, I'm sure I'm butchering exactly how it works. That was like, there was some breakthrough and somebody figured out how to do this and it works shockingly well. And that's why, because it only requires very, very limited data. It just needs the highs and the lows. It was cool. Anyway.
And Shazam. Shazam still.
One of them got bought. Apple bought one of them. I don't know if they bought Shazam. But I was listening, this person was telling me some of this, said that now it's so good that you can hum songs and it knows. It will flag your humming happy birthday as like a violation of their copyright.
Although if you can't tell happy birthday and you need Shazam, that's already a problem.
Yeah.
I have another tip.
Let's go.
All right.
Have you guys heard of Jerry Colonna? Is this coach? He used to be a VC and now runs a boot camp called Reboot, and he wrote a book a while back, but I just read it and it is very good. Highly recommend. It's the only book I've actually finished recently. Like your movie in YouTube, I use Blinkist. And so I tend to just get, for business books, the summary is enough, like the 10-minute version of the movie you just mentioned. But some books I'm finding are worth the full book experience. Very few. This is one of them.
It's about mental health and whatnot, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's about life, everything that is. But yeah, mental health is one of them.
Okay.
Cool. What else do we have on the docket? Oh, investing in a business. What makes you invest? Like, I'll tell you, in my experience, the investments where write a check and forget it have not been the best return. And I wonder if there's a correlation between the level of involvement and returns. That's my hypothesis. And by the way, I get more joy from if I get more involved with something, even maybe if it's not the next billion-dollar idea, I still get a lot of value because I enjoy working and helping these people. So that's where I'm at, but I'm wondering what everybody else thinks.
I mean, I guess like paying for it in the form of time investment is a form of investment, right? It's not free and it's different. And so that should be factored into kind of the cost of the investment in that sense. But yeah, I hear you. I mean, I think that to me, I like things where I could affect change, and that way I don't just let the world happen to me with whatever happens with the investment, but instead if my company could make it better, then that's a better type of deal, I think. And then I think it's also possible to get outsized returns from that, because work or deals where there's no work involved whatsoever, anyone can do it. There's no edge. And I think that's going to be less good of a return. So I'm with you in that sense.
I like the work. I like the putting because of just money that I provide. You get money anywhere. And there's a lot of places you get money. But, each of us has unique skill sets. We each have unique, and that's the real value, I think.
We should take, at one point, part of the pod, an idea or a business maybe that we can actually help in some way, and then actually do it. And
it'd be fun.
Idea for the pod.
Taylor and I were in Israel at one point, and there were these kids that they would charge like unnatural prices to be able to walk up a hill. And that's how they packaged it. And we didn't want to pay like the $5 entry fee to walk up a free hill. But really, once you get to the top of the hill, they take these like amazing photos of you. And so they had a marketing problem we talked about. Like, they weren't charging you for entrance. They were charging you for the photos. Like, the entrance is free. It doesn't matter, because these kids were phenomenal. They knew how to use phones better than we knew how to use phones. They took like killer photos. And if they like branded that the right way, we could help their business over there.
And I think that's the equivalent of it's the new lemonade stand, because everybody who wants lemonade anymore. But the photos, these kids, and I say kids, they were like 9. I mean, these kids were 9 or 10. I've never been impressed by somebody else on their phone. There's not a whole lot that you could do on their phone where I'm like, holy shit, how'd you do that? It's pretty clear. I could figure that out. That kid, there was a kid who took a video of Sam and I, and he took Sam's phone. The kid took Sam's phone out of his hand, and he goes, it was literally this fast. He goes, type, tap, tap up here, and he did 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And he put all these filters on the video,
Yeah.
and then gave it back to Sam. And Sam goes, holy shit.
Yeah. Yeah. So in that case, like they have like photo examples, like just slightly adjust the way that business is presented. Oh.
And much higher prices. They could charge $20 or $30 or $50.
Yeah.
And we were saying we should like print signs up for them with the photo examples and like package deals. You pay $25, you get 2 photos. They look like this. You want your whole family? Cool. It's $50. They make a killing.
Very cool. You want to talk about community?
Let's talk about community. So some of us listened to this podcast, My First Million, and there's one of the guys on there, Sam Parr. He founded The Hustle, which is sold to HubSpot, and he's been working on this business in the dark since June. So he built this, and so he just announced it this week. It's called Hampton. And so he's going on a tour explaining the business. The reason I think it's interesting is Hampton is a competitor, really, to Entrepreneurs Organization, which we're all members of, YPO, Young Presidents Organization, Vistage. There's several of these communities. Chief. There's several of these communities, and some of them, Chief's fairly new, 3 years old, 4 years old. And these are all big businesses. Several are nonprofits. These businesses do hundreds of millions of dollars a year, and people gladly pay for 10, 15, 20, or 30 years. I have 4 mates in my EO group who have been members for over 20 years. And so they're like strong community businesses. And so I think the question is, it's not so much will Hampton or not be successful, but what do you guys think about building communities? Like we all love to be part of communities, especially like entrepreneur tech communities. What do you all think, in your experience, makes a great community versus one that's not worth it? That's not worth the money or not worth the time.
I want to build a longevity community. I think this is something I would get value just from learning what other longevity hacks people do and learn and share with others. I do feel a little bad about just like charging money for it, because if I'm like, hey, I started a community, join it, pay money, I don't know. It feels like you got to add value. Even with EO, I think there's a bit of that. People are like, why am I paying money when I'm just meeting with 8 people every month? I could just meet with those 8 people without paying anybody else money. And eventually is why some people leave the organization. So I think, so I struggle kind of with what value does that community bring that's more than just the other.
I think a community that can accomplish being cooperative rather than competitive is what makes it a good community. So for example, if members all are contributing without worry that by contributing it's strengthening their competition or it's somehow negative or adverse for them, and so they're selflessly contributing, and then everyone does that, and there's a culture of giving that is built, I think that enables a successful community, as opposed to one where people want to sit on their secrets and keep it to themselves, and once in a while someone gives something but everyone doesn't, and that's a bad community. It's a very competitive community. So that comes to mind.
I think also along those lines, entrepreneurs, a lot of these have no solicitation rules, so you're not allowed to sell. I'm not allowed to say, hey, Flaviu, I sell something, you should do business with me. That there's no pitching allowed. And I think a lot of what makes a successful community are like the rites and rituals of the community, right? So there's like the culture and the values or whatever that people put on the wall, but really culture is what are the repeated behaviors that we all do. And inside of EO, the no solicitation, if you come into an event and you try to solicit, people will yell at you and ask you to leave, or you will correct the behavior, you won't be in there. And that makes it a place where I feel like I can share, to your point,
right.
Or I feel like that you're not trying to pitch me, that this isn't some secret pitch when you're telling me something, that you're sharing it out of the kindness of your heart.
Yeah.
And what was that? He said there was a difference between audience and community.
Yeah, so I find this very interesting. I've launched like a global kind of software forum as part of EO YPO 6 weeks ago, already getting a lot of value out of it. I love this community idea. So Sam Parr said, people say community when they actually mean audience. And he said community is one-to-one connections. So we're on EO. The community part of it is not the people who run EO. It's not like we're getting wisdom from them. We get community because we get wisdom from us, like from the other members. The one-to-one connection is what enables community. Audience is one-to-many. So somebody like a Tim Ferriss doesn't have a big community. He has a huge audience because he's the person that's talking, and then everybody's just listening. Now, maybe some of the fans are friends or whatnot, but really that's not the community. And I thought that distinction, I've never heard that distinction before. I thought that distinction, people abuse the word community, and what they really mean is audience. And I think it's a great distinction because given that lens, I don't know how many communities I'm in, right? Like how many,
How many can you even be in? It feels exhausting. Like we all have these WhatsApp group type communities that never check. And it's like, I guess the question is, how would you even start one? Sure, if you already have a huge audience, and then you're like, hey guys, pay $1,000 and join this community where I'll be sharing my secret founder stuff. I guess that works. But it just, I don't know, it doesn't feel good. And you know what I mean? How would you start a community today?
Well, I haven't. I just find it interesting. Also, I think it's really hard to scale these businesses. So if the three of us find something interesting, or you all are in forums or in forums with 8 people, I'm not sure forums work with 80 people. At some point, I lose the connections with the people.
Totally.
Chief, which is a female-only kind of community, they've grown. They're doing $100 million a year in revenue. They have 25,000 members. And how is it possible? If you joined, it's like when you join a company when there's 50 people, and then it grows to 5,000 people. It's not the same. They're different companies in a lot of ways. And to me, I think a community with a cap is very interesting. So what if you had a community where you say there's only 500 members, that's as many as we'll ever have, and the only way to get in is if somebody leaves or dies or quits or whatever, and then you can be part of the community. But then that's very exclusive, and maybe it becomes very expensive, and is that really what you want to create? But I think small communities are actually really valuable. Like we have text threads that we're in that are few, like small in the number of people, but I get a lot of value out of it. That to me is like the good community.
Yeah.
You would cap it, but then there's not a huge opportunity for a business. It's
For scaling it, yeah.
Yeah, it's right. It's not a big business. I'm not going to start that business.
There's this restaurant called Hillstone that the founders, look, I think they were brothers, and said, we're only going to have 50 restaurants. And when they got to that number, they were like, that's it, we're not opening anymore. And whenever the opportunity comes, we got to open a new restaurant here, they have to decide which they already have to close down. And that's how they do it, and that's how they always keep it, and that's how it'll always be, as long as it's owned by them. And it's because that's the way to maintain quality, to your point, where they feel like over that number, they can't keep the quality.
I think there are applications in business as well. Like I'm not interested in running a 500-person company. I think the dynamics of larger companies, even going from 5 employees or 5 people to 25 to 50, like the dynamics, it becomes much harder. And I wonder, I think in my head, like where are my skill sets best? And then I think there's a flip side of this of maybe I should be growing. Sam, you have a lot of people. Like maybe I should be learning those new skills in larger companies and more management tiers and all that stuff.
Not at all. I think the future, if AI is going to do anything, I think it's going to enable businesses to compete with less headcount, right? And so whoever doesn't adapt fast enough, they just won't be able to have a competitive business. So, I mean, we already see it in our business today, where it would take a health insurance company, thousands of employees, and we could do it dozens of employees. And so that's like a big difference in scale, right? To 10x your costs. And so, look, we're still small. I don't want to pretend like we're already out competing the largest healthcare companies in the world. But I can already see the path to where if they don't find a way to cut headcount, like you see tech sort of doing, somebody will outcompete them. So I think the future is more businesses like a 1-2 person that look like today 100 or 500 person company looks like.
Yeah, there's a really good Hacker News thread yesterday that was, hey developers, like software engineers, how are you using AI today? And I was like, this is going to be a terrible thread because it's going to be a bunch of people that are going to complain about how AI sucks and how it doesn't really work. Instead, it was an amazing thread. Like the thread, all the comments were like, these are good software engineers, just the nature of that community. And the top thread was about how they used AI yesterday. Like here's specific examples. They gave specific stories that they had used in the last several days of, I had to tunnel into this thing. And they were telling all these stories that I don't really understand. I'm not an engineer, but I think that they're interesting. But the sentence that stuck out to me was they said, if I had asked, if you and I were both software engineers and I like you and we're friends and we're all those things, I can't ask you what I asked ChatGPT because no matter what I ask, it enthusiastically, positively, and quickly gives me an answer. And that I cannot get from a coworker. Because even if you know the answer, you're never going to always be positive. You're never going to always have the answer. And I thought that was a very interesting frame because like in some ways you're not afraid, like it makes you ask more. That grows very quickly, because if I always get good answers, then I'm going to use it more and more.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is the power of one of these things that allows the 1 or 2 person businesses to be, like you said, to compete with 50 person businesses, because they are doing the work of 50 people, but just 49 of those people happen to be done by good prompts or in a computer or what have you.
Those
Hey,
guys,
officer.
before we peace out.
Anything you want to pitch, Sam?
So you were talking about companies being smaller, more efficient. I think the insurance industry is like ripe for disruption. Came across this company, I think it's called Steadily or something. I have no involvement with them, but I have Airbnbs I do on the side. They offer to do insurance seemingly at just lower prices than other insurance companies. And I asked them, I was like, how are you able to do that? Why is your pricing any lower? And they were like, we just have like far less headcount. We don't do all the inefficient things that others do. And totally spoke to me, because my experience dealing with insurance companies, you have to like pull a call just to get on a call to talk through filling out a form you could do with an email to schedule the next call. Massively inefficient. I think that whole industry needs to be changing. And so I'm with you in that sense about smaller headcount.
What kind of insurance?
Short-term rental insurance.
Oh,
Like homeowners insurance for short-term rentals.
that's awesome. Any closing thoughts, Flaviu?
No. Have a good one.
This is great. Have a good weekend.
Bye.
all.
Cheers.
Thank you for rocking with the homies. Taylor, Trusty, and Flaviu. Seize the day, own it. Until next time, hold it down, hold it down. Hey.